I'm glad you're all here, and I'm very pleased to be able to present this evening lecture to all of you. Sponsored, of course, by Campus Ministry, the Theology Department, and the Office of Mission Integration. So I think almost everybody in this room knows who I am, but I am Dr. Sister Marilyn Sunderman, and I am very pleased to be here tonight to share with you some of what I have been able to uncover about Catherine's spirituality. Catherine McAuley, that is, the foundress of the Sisters of Mercy. So your handout, I'd like to talk about it for a minute. I was able to not pirate, because there's no copyright on these images of Catherine, which I was able to find on the internet. And I'm going to first talk about those images for a little bit. And my favorite one is right here. And of course, you're seeing it all in black and white, but here it is in color. And I want to say before I start with these images that there is absolutely no portrait of Catherine McAuley, no bona fide portrait, because she would not sit for a portrait. So, the interesting thing is, after Catherine passed away, the sisters said, we really need to have an image of Catherine. So there was a sister who looked a lot like Catherine McAuley. She agreed to sit, to have a sketch created of her that became the foundation for any images of Catherine McAuley. So isn't that very interesting? I think that's a very interesting note. Well, on that note, I'd like to just move through these images. And of course, there's the title of this. And just take a look at these, and if I have any comments, I'll offer them. Otherwise, I'm just going to move through these, and you, of course, have these on your slides also. This might be pretty near to what Catherine really looked like. I saw this image in one of the Houses of Mercy in Ireland, and I cannot remember where I saw this, but the original I actually saw of this image. I cannot remember the house that I was in. That's a pretty stern one of her. There she is sitting at her desk, and that's in the Beggett Street house. This might be the sketch, for all I know. There are some Sisters of Mercy, so if there's anything that I say that isn't exactly correct, or you have more insight about it, I appreciate hearing.
We'll raise our hand.
You may raise your hand like we're in school. That could be it, I don't know. This one is the same image that, moving ahead, appears on a stamp that the government of Ireland produced in honor of Catherine McAuley, and this stamp is not valued at too much. And I don't think it's in circulation anymore, but it was to honor her. This is an icon of Catherine McAuley. A lot of times icons are produced for people who are very saintly. And of course, she's not a saint yet. She's a venerable on her way to sainthood in the Catholic Church. But I also saw this icon, the original of it, in, again, one of the houses over in Ireland when I spent a few weeks there. This is a more contemporary image of Catherine without a habit. And Marie Henderson is the artist. She lives in Detroit, Michigan. She's a member of the faculty at the University of Detroit Mercy, which the Sisters of Mercy and the Jesuit priests co-sponsor in Michigan. She is the artist. This one, well, I'm jumping ahead. This is a kind of close-up of a large, full-statured image of Catherine in the front of the International Mercy Center in Ireland, in Dublin. This is what you see when you come into the original House of Mercy that Catherine built. And she's, there's a woman with her, and that'll become clear if you don't know about it in a little bit. This is the image you should all recognize. Where would you find this image? Where is it? Yes, it's right here on campus, and the artist is Marie Henderson once again. And you can see a similarity in the face of Catherine with that image I showed you of hers, which is contemporary. So here we have a contemporary rendering of Catherine McAuley here right on our campus at St. Joseph's College. So those are a few images that I wanted to show you. Now if you go to page 3 of this handout, the sections of my presentation are I have a slide for each one. Unlike what I normally do is have a PowerPoint with all the different points, I did not do that for this. What I did is I chose quotes from Catherine's writings, two that are part and parcel of the sections that I'm going to offer here in presentation. So please do not look for this to be the steps in what I'm trying to say. There are only several, in some cases one, or in several, and other times several or even more quotes from Catherine's writings. So with that, I'd like to begin. And the first section is just a little introduction biographically. So here we go. Catherine McAuley lived in Ireland during the 19th century, 18th into the 19th century. She was born into a family of means. After the early deaths of her father and her mother, Catherine lived with relatives, and she eventually accepted the invitation to reside with a couple named the Callahans. They were childless, and they were also wealthy. First, she lived with them in Dublin, and when they moved to the Coolock estate outside of Dublin, she moved there with them, where she managed their household, which was a huge household. I've also been to the Coolock house, and it is extensive. It's also been renovated in the last decade. With the death of this couple, who adopted Catherine, Catherine inherited their estate, which constituted what today would amount to $1 million. With this legacy, she built an expansive house right in the heart of Dublin, where Lower Herbert and Begget Streets intersect. There, first as a lay woman, and later as the foundress of the Sisters of Mercy, Catherine realized her dream of providing living quarters for working women and children, and a school for the children, those children, and children in the neighborhood. During the decade that Catherine lived after taking religious vows and establishing her sisterhood, she opened numerous houses of mercy in various parts of Ireland and several in England. Additionally, she instructed novices, she facilitated retreats, and she regularly corresponded with many in her institute. Records of these endeavors provide a rich treasury reflective of Catherine's spirituality in both theory and practice. With this in mind, let us proceed to explore various aspects of the now venerable Catherine's lived Christian spirituality. So our first topic is the spirit of mercy. And you have a quote to which I'll be referring. This quote is from the original rule of the Sisters of Mercy. It's a portion of that rule. It reads, "Mercy, the principal path pointed out by Jesus Christ to those who are desirous of following him, has in all ages of the church excited the faithful in a particular manner to instruct and comfort the sick and dying poor, as in them they regarded the person of our divine Master, who has said, "Amen, I say to you, as long as you did it to one of these my least brethren, you did it to me." This statement reflects the fact that Catherine centered the spirituality of her religious community in God's mercy, exemplified by Jesus, who reached out in love to poor, forgotten, and marginalized people. Thus did members of the early mercy community make their way into streets and alleyways, and there, like Jesus, respond compassionately to persons in need. According to Catherine, mercy repeatedly attunes itself to the signs of the times. With this in mind, Catherine encouraged her sisters to engage in any ministry within their competence that met situations of need of those around them. In her own life, Catherine ministered in a merciful, compassionate way to cholera victims, destitute young women, the dying poor, homeless and unemployed persons, her sisters in community, family members, and friends and enemies. In this way, she modeled to the members of her sisterhood that the works of mercy constituted the business of their lives. Hospitality. Welcoming others is at the heart of hospitality that knows no strangers. Such hospitality is pivotal in Catherine's spirituality. She believed that God is encountered in the guise of those in need of being welcomed. With this in mind, she declared, "I would rather be cold and hungry than the poor in Kingston or elsewhere be deprived of any consolation in our power to afford." In the course of the 14 years that Catherine lived at the House of Mercy on Beggett Street, she opened its doors and her heart to multitudes of strangers who sought assistance in their needs. Noteworthy is the fact that during the 1832 cholera epidemic in Ireland, Catherine brought an orphan girl to the Beggett Street house where, like a mother, she cared for this little one. According to Catherine, hospitality includes feeding those who are hungry, providing clothing for the needy, giving drink to the thirsty, sheltering homeless persons, visiting those who suffer sickness, grieving with those who mourn loss, burying the deceased, and visiting incarcerated women and men. To do so is to make tangible Jesus' merciful love in the here and now. It is to respond graciously to those experiencing difficult circumstances. In Catherine's own life, practicing the virtue of hospitality proved very demanding. Its challenges included being the guardian of 9 children, nursing sick and dying persons, sheltering women, and undertaking arduous travel in Ireland and England to establish multiple houses of mercy. A touching story of Catherine's hospitality involves a young woman whose health was preventing her from joining the Mercy community. In response to this situation, Catherine made provision for restful, recuperative, seaside living for this lady and instructed those who cared for her to exercise great tenderness in her regard. As her life drew to a close, Catherine demonstrated hospitality at the highest level. As she lay on her deathbed at the Begget Street house, she offered words of encouragement to each sister who visited her. Furthermore, she requested that immediately after her death, all enjoy a comfortable cup of tea. At that time, tea was rather expensive. So in effect, Catherine was calling for her loved ones to enjoy a special experience, to console each other, and to celebrate their beloved's entrance into the eternal hospitality of God. Catherine's following words capture her understanding of hospitality. She says, "There are things the poor prize more highly than gold, though they cost the donor nothing. Among these are the kind word, the gentle, compassionate look, and the patient hearing of their sorrows." A matter of the heart, hospitality lends an ear and extends a hand. In essence, hospitality mirrors God's welcoming, cordial, tender care. Catherine's relationship with Jesus was the lodestone of her spirituality and that of the religious community she founded. To the members of her sisterhood, she stressed that, quote, "The study of a religious be the life and maxims of Jesus Christ. This divine model should be like a book continually open before her, from which she is to learn what she is to think, say, and do." Additionally, Catherine instructed her sisters that Jesus, quote, "will point out the way. He will have us walk without any illusion. It is not sufficient," she says, "that Jesus Christ be formed in us. He must be recognized in our conduct. We must become meek and humble as he was. And this is not only in the exterior, but chiefly in our hearts." In essence, Catherine counseled her sisters to pray that Jesus' Spirit be infused into their hearts, so that in effect, those they encountered would encounter him. The Jesus Catherine followed is the mercy of God incarnated. He is the one who loved others to the point of death. In establishing the Institute of Mercy, Catherine sought to serve the crucified and the afflicted of her time. Her enthusiastic following of Jesus was contagious. Soon after the founding of the Mercy community, many young women were attracted to join the sisterhood. In these sisters, Catherine sought to kindle a strong desire to live out Jesus' compassionate way of loving others. At the Last Supper, Jesus shared with his close friends, his small band of 12, the importance of union and charity toward each other. In Catherine's instructions to her fledgling institute, she did likewise. On her deathbed, she made union and charity her legacy to her community. In a letter to Sister Elizabeth Moore, Catherine wrote, "One thing is remarkable, that no breach of charity ever occurred among us," meaning her sisters. "The sun never," I believe she wrote, "went down on our anger. This is our only boast. Otherwise we've been deficient enough. But we will try to do better, all of us." Jesus' example of loving others grounded Catherine's understanding of the meaning and practice of charity. To our sisters, she emphasized that, quote, "Our divine Savior's example should be before us under all circumstances, particularly in exercising charity toward our neighbor, and more especially toward those who are united with us in religion." Catherine insisted that without a strong foundation of charity at home, meaning with the sisters, its exercise abroad would be valueless in God's eyes. The following are some of her other teachings regarding charity. This is not all that she taught, but this is sampling of more things she had to say. She said, "Charity is the queen of virtues. Where it dwells, God also dwells. And where it does not exist, God cannot be." She said, if we love God, we will undoubtedly love our neighbor also. They are as cause and effect. Our manner, she wrote, should be engaging and full of the unction of charity. And the last of her teachings that I've placed in this presentation is, in fine, she writes, our charity must be in our hearts and from our hearts, and a charity such as Jesus Christ practiced while on earth. According to Catherine, those who love others in a cordial, enlivening, and invigorating way enjoy a taste of heaven on earth. With this in mind, she cautioned her sisters to, I quote, "dread entertaining the slightest uncharitableness or unkindly feeling towards others." She counseled her sisters to be ever ready to praise, to encourage, to stimulate, but slow to censure and still slower to condemn. She also instructed, quote, "If there is coldness in your heart toward anyone, there's a great danger of aversion following. If you find a shadow of this vice in your heart," she writes, "lose no time in rooting it out and endeavor to plant in its place that cordial charity so much recommended." Catherine deeply desired that love be the heart and soul, the badge and honor of her institute. In the first 7 years of her fledgling community's existence, its only rule was union and charity. In the original rule and constitutions of the community, it states that sisters, quote, "shall in conversation, manner, and conduct most cautiously avoid whatever may in the least disturb their union or lessen to the smallest degree their mutual love and charity. They shall, as true followers of God, walk in love as Christ loved us, preserving above all things charity, which is the bond of perfection." Catherine sought to put her counsels regarding charity into practice in her life. When others injured her, she prayed to restrain from becoming resentful. She governed her religious community in a tender cordial way, and she trusted that sisters who oversaw foundations would do likewise. Crosses. Integral to Catherine's life and spirituality were crosses that released creative powers in her, drawn from the pain and the suffering she experienced. She had a poignant sense of the Paschal mystery at work in her life. She believed God was with her when she suffered setbacks and experienced opposition or diminishment. She willingly embraced crosses for the love of Jesus Christ. In and through her own adversities, Catherine encountered the suffering Jesus. She believed that to follow him entails sharing in his cross. She asserted the humbled, agonizing, abandoned Christ. This is my Christ. Him I will have and seek. Outside of him, nothing. She instructed her sisters, when a harsh or unkind expression is used toward you, when you feel weariness in the performance of your daily duties, when anything occurs that's painful to you, behold your cross. See your Redeemer nailed to his. Repeatedly, she reminded her sisters that the Institute of Mercy was established on the cross of Jesus Christ. In the original rule and constitution, she stated, the Institute is in a special manner founded on Calvary, there to serve a crucified Redeemer. Catherine maintained that any obstacles encountered and worked through in her institute were God's way of rendering its foundation firm. The following is a sampling of some of her other teachings regarding crosses. Some great things, she writes, which God designs to accomplish would be too much joy without a dash of bitterness in the cup. This is your life, she says, joys and sorrows mingled, one succeeding the other. Without the cross, the real crown cannot come. Crosses manifested themselves in various ways during her life. Particularly after Catherine's father died, she must have experienced the pain of her mother's worldliness and financial mismanagement. Also, relatives' attacks on her Catholicity must have been a bitter pill for Catherine to swallow. At one point, her brother James mocked his sister's faith. At the Presentation Sisters Convent, where Catherine completed a novitiate, her second novice director subjected her to physical and psychological humiliations, including demanding that she kneel with her arms outstretched in the corner of the dining room. The novice director then forgot about Catherine, who endured several hours of suspension in this painful position. That's not all, though. Additionally, the superior of the Presentation Sisters kept Catherine, I quote from Tender Courage, which is one of the texts that's been written about her life, in perpetual agitation by giving Catherine to understand that the Presentation Sisters would receive her companions. There were two women who went with her to go through this novitiate, to profession of vows at the end of the novitiate experience, but postpone hers or even reject her altogether. And I wrote, providentially, that threat was never carried out. After Catherine and her fellow novices, Elizabeth Harley and Mary Ann Doyle, professed their vows at the Presentation Convent that was in Dublin, they quickly returned to Beggett Street, where they found some residents very ill. 2 months later, Anne O'Grady died in Catherine's arms. In the following April, Sister Mary Elizabeth Harley, one of the original three, she passed away. In the beginning years of the Mercy Institute, some clergy and laity in Dublin questioned the authenticity of Catherine's walking nuns. The fact that the Mercy community was the first congregation of women religious to not be cloistered, in my opinion, explains why some would be suspicious of these sisters' unconventional way of life. During the decade that Catherine lived after establishing the Sisters of Mercy, a number of young, talented members of the community suffered serious illness and died. Catherine keenly felt the loss of each of these women. During this time also, a chaplaincy dispute at Beggett Street was a trial by fire for Catherine, who insisted that the community there needed the regular services of a priest for sacramental and spiritual counseling purposes. At the height of this experience, Catherine wrote to one of the sisters, Mary de Pazzi Delaney, quote, "Will you relieve me from the distressing business about the chaplain? It is constantly before me and makes me dread going home. I know it's not possible for me to have any more argument with Dr. Myler about it without extreme agitation." And when this dispute was settled, she wrote to her very dear friend and confidant, Frances Ward. "Frances, pray fervently for me, that God may remove all bitterness from me. I can hardly think of what has been done to me without resentment. May God forgive me and make me truly humble before he calls me into his presence." Another severe difficulty that Catherine faced occurred in Kingstown, Ireland, where she had established a house. Realizing the great need for a school there for poor children, she agreed to provide some land and startup money for this endeavor. It was Catherine's understanding that the parish priest there would provide the rest of the finances needed to undertake this educational project. The priest refused to pay the man contracted to build the school the remainder of the expense of the project. So the builder brought a legal suit against Catherine, and the court ruled in his favor. Reflecting on this experience, Catherine again wrote Frances Ward, "Thus we go on, flourishing in the very midst of the cross, more than a common share of which has lately befallen my lot. I humbly trust it is the cross of Christ." Health-wise, Catherine suffered from periodontal disease. She also experienced stomach pains, a lot of stomach pains, that could be related to all the stress and strain due to her constant travels in order to establish all these foundations. There were 12 of them that were established in the time she was alive. Additionally, she faced budgetary issues. Don't we all? When revenue from lotteries, bazaars, charity sermons at Beggett Street declined terribly. Catherine situated crosses in the context of Jesus' sufferings. She describes his crucifixion as the poverty of Jesus, stripped of his clothes, forsaken by his friends, and even she by his eternal Father. She counseled her sisters to unite their sufferings with those of their crucified Redeemer. And I think the following narrative indicates that she followed her own advice. It was reported by one of her sisters that, quote, "Catherine hid her own troubles and sufferings, bearing them so completely in the wounds of her crucified spouse as to leave us little record of what really passed within her soul. Many times, when the sisters found her in tears before the tabernacle, that was in the chapel at Bagot Street, they were forced to turn away, as if intruding upon such hidden sorrow. Like Jesus, Catherine experienced others' coldness and opposition, even at times from those from whom she expected support. She followed a crucified, risen Christ. She embraced the folly of the cross and exulted in the glory of the resurrection. Like gold tested in fire, through suffering crosses, Catherine became more compassionate, more joyful, and more possessed by God. Prayer. Catherine, a woman of prayer, understood prayer is a gift from God, and that one should beg God continually in all humility for this gift. During each day, she spent a considerable amount of time communing with God. Often she awoke early in the morning in order to rest in God's provident presence before commencing in the busy schedule of her day. Catherine believed that prayer enables one to develop a spirit of service in order to carry out works of mercy. To her sisters, she counseled, we ought to give ourselves to prayer to obtain new vigor, zeal, and fervor in the exercise of our state. In a similar way, she stated that the time given to prayer we must consider as employed to obtain the grace, the strength, the animation, which alone will enable us to persevere in the meritorious obligations of our state. That's very similar to that last quote. She believed that one's whole life should be a continual act of praise and prayer. She taught that one should raise one's heart to God many times during the course of a day, asking God for the grace to spend the day in God's service. Catherine maintained that prayer language should be simple and that prayer and ministry intertwine. She stressed that works of mercy are accomplished in and through prayer, and prayer always accompanies works of mercy. Through her ongoing experiences of prayer, she grew in her trust of God. Expressing her confidence in God regarding her institute, she insisted, quote, "The Lord and Master of our house and home is a faithful provider. Let us never desire more than enough. God will give us that and a blessing." In a letter to Sister Angela Dunn, she wrote, "Put your whole confidence in God. God will never let you want necessities for yourself or your children." Sister Dunn was an educator. She was a principal of an elementary school. Catherine believed meditation to be a most effectual way of imprinting deeply in the mind the sublime truths of religion, of elevating the soul and inflaming the heart with the love of God. Meditation. She taught that meditation imparts peace to one's spirit and light to one's mind. She believed that it transforms the soul into a sanctuary where Jesus loves to dwell. Meditation, according to Catherine, is a holy exercise in which one receives the bread of grace that nourishes one unto eternal life. She described meditation as a font of refreshment and advised that at the course of a period of meditation, one should focus on one or two points to recall during the course of one's day. During her own periods of meditation, Catherine loved to dwell on Jesus' teachings and his actions, narrated in the New Testament. She faithfully and wholeheartedly participated in communal prayer at the Begget Street House of Mercy when she was home. She joined her sisters, the lay women and children who resided there, and neighbors for evening prayer. 8 p.m., I remember that. It was 8 p.m. they came together. Regarding praying the hours of the divine office, the official prayers of the church, in common, she emphasized the importance of sensitivity to God's presence and to the meaning of the words of the prayer. She stressed that each person should bring to this prayer a desire to praise and honor God by lovingly reciting the prayer together. The most profound and passionate expression of her personal prayer is her Suscipe, in which her intimacy with God is most evident. In all humility and deep surrender to God, she prayed this prayer. I have it in music that I want to end this program with tonight. So I'm going to keep you in suspense if you don't know what the Suscipe is. The prayers that she prayed also included the 30-day prayers, 30 days prayer, the Psalter of Jesus, and the penitential psalms. During the entire month of September, every September, she recited the 30 days prayer for the spiritual and temporal welfare of her institute. According to one of her sisters, she always said this prayer with great confidence in obtaining what she requested from God. It was also her custom to remain a month after the establishment of a new foundation in order to complete the 30 days prayer. She did this to implore God's graces for the sisters and blessings on their new home and their ministry. She regarded this prayer, regarding this prayer, it's recorded that one day, this is interesting, when a disagreement occurred at the Begget Street House of Mercy, after night prayer, Catherine asked a sister to stay with her to recite the prayer in the hope of restoring peace and union in the community there. The Psalter of Jesus, one of her favorite prayers, invokes Jesus' name 150 times. Oh, there might be a correlation with the fact that there are 150 Psalms in the book of Psalms. I didn't think of that one until this moment. Themes in the Psalter include the need for God's mercy, dependence on God's help, reverence for Jesus' person and ministry, gratitude for his passion and his death. All of these themes resonated profoundly with Catherine McAuley. Sister Claire Moore reports that Catherine and Frances Ward and Claire would sometimes rise at 4 in the morning, 4 a.m., and that together they would pray the Psalter by moonlight. Monks get up at 2. Catherine's rising at 4. Just an interesting comparison. The 7 penitential psalms. They were prayers that Catherine often recited. They are prayers for the repentance of sin, confidence in God's mercy. I think it's interesting that there's a tradition in our Mercy community of praying the De Profundis, which is Psalm 130. It starts, out of the depths, I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice, and it goes on. And this custom is a consequence of Catherine's great devotion to the penitential psalms, including the De Profundis. The same can be said of the Miserere, which is Psalm 51. Is everybody still with me? Okay. The Eucharist. Not that none of these different topics are in any order of importance. They're just the topics that I have been able to call in my research to bring this to you tonight. So the Eucharist. To Catherine, this is the sacrament of primary importance. She calls it a fountain of joy, peace, consolation, and grace to all who lovingly approach the Eucharist in the spirit of faith, humility, and reverence. She stresses in her writings that our lives should be a continual preparation for the Eucharist, for the reception of communion, and that all our actions performed with so pure an intention as to serve to fit us for the coming of our divine guest in the Eucharist. Catherine viewed receiving Jesus in the sacred mystery of the Eucharist as the highest act of worship. Since the Eucharist affects union and charity by uniting many into one, she insisted that before the reception of communion, one should renounce all coldness or aversion toward anyone. For Catherine, each communion is a precious moment in one's life. And she said this, one communion well made is sufficient to make a saint. What a statement. According to Catherine, in the Eucharistic sacrament, Jesus seeks to comfort recipients in their sufferings and fortify them for their everyday experiences. With this in mind, she urged her sisters that upon reception of communion, they beg for the grace to be able to carry out their daily responsibilities in a manner that would give glory to God. Catherine, a 19th century Irish lady, is a woman of God who had a passionate and compassionate love of poor persons. She was a visionary who also possessed an incredible, remarkable ability to be pragmatically oriented. Optimistic by nature, she was able to throw a ray of sunshine on even the darkest hour. Catherine had a great sense of humor. This enabled her to keep a balanced perspective in life's most difficult circumstances. She was demonstrably affectionate. She cared about all the women who companioned her in mercy, and she reached out in love to her relatives. Her loving nature was equally manifest in the compassionate way in which she welcomed poor persons into her life. She spent her energy, her time, and her financial resources providing food, shelter, clothing, and a practical type of education rooted in Christian principles to those whom she and her sisters came to know by name in towns and villages throughout Ireland and England. She accepted her limitations and her imperfections. She challenged her sisters and herself to dance with their shadow. She asserted, quote, "Let us not be distressed that others know our faults. We all have our imperfections, and we shall have them until our death." The Irishman, Dr. William Blake, reflected rightly that his friend Catherine was one selected by heaven for some great work. The array of ministerial endeavors of the sisterhood in years past and today testifies to the fact that Venerable Catherine is a great gift to the Church and to humankind. In countless ways, the timeless mission of mercy of this woman of God lives on in countries across the globe. So we have come to the end of this presentation, but we haven't come to the end of the evening. What I'd like to do is, if anyone has any kind of comment or question, now is the time to offer comments or questions. And if there aren't any, that's okay too, but anybody who has anything, the floor is open. Sister Mary George.
I'd like to say something about her belief in providence, the divine providence of God.
Absolutely. Catherine McAuley believed that God is an incredible provider and that one should rely on God's care and that I think I made the quotes, some of the quotes. Don't worry, your necessities will be taken care of, she shared with one sister. She really believed that this institute was God's doing. She said if it went out of existence, well, it would go out of existence. But she prayed that, it would only go out of existence, she thought, if the whole reason for its existence went out of existence, which is a lot of existence. But the point is that she really believed that God would take care of her institute through thick and through thin, through good days and not good days, and that she had, it was like a steady rudder, I think, for her, like a ship. God was like the author, like one running this ship. And she was just the person that was kind of mediating God's work in this regard. And what she really was thinking is that God would enable the community with graces to work through whatever would come its way. And really that's been true for the Sisters of Mercy down through the years. This community was established literally in 1831. So here we are, 2015. And we're still going strong as a global institute. So I hope that was helpful. Who else would like to? Yes. Tony?
Just a comment, I'm always amazed that one individual, which is McAuley, could do so much. If we think of, and I'm going to quote these numbers wrong, but there are about 50 or 60 universities in America.
17.
17 universities in America. There are close to 40 high schools. There's probably more than that. The Sisters of Mercy have or deal with more hospital beds than any other organization in America, with the exception of the veterans, which means that one woman created help for people to get educated at all levels and to get hospital, and many of us in America take advantage of that.
Right. This world, I cannot enumerate all the places in the world where mercy is, but I can say some. We are not only in the United States, we are in Newfoundland, we are in Jamaica, we're in Guam, we're in the Philippines, we're closing our ministry in Chuuk, which is an island there near the Philippines. We're in Australia, we're in New Zealand, we're in Papua New Guinea, we're in Central America, we are in South America in a number of countries, including Peru. I can't name the rest. This gives you an idea of the expansiveness of this institute. And not only are we vowed women in this community, but we're also associates in community. And Dr. Gelando is an associate. Anyone else in this? Dr. Riley is an associate. We have men and women associates, lay people, married people, priests. Priests are associates in mercy. These people go through a period of learning our spirituality. They make a covenant with the community for a period of time. They agree to do some kind of mercy ministry. They have ongoing spirituality development. There's no financial requirement, but a lot of people who are associates donate to the community, not only their time, but also their treasure. And the list goes on. We have incredible numbers of people who have become associates, and some are lifetime members now too. You can make a lifetime covenant in some areas in the Institute. This is incredible when you think about it, which only even adds to what Dr. Gelando said about the expansiveness of all of this. That one woman in the 19th century had a vision of mercy that is just really snowballed throughout the world, is just unbelievable. And here we sit in one of the institutions that would be, it is the result of her vision of what it can be, education can be. Well, I had two other things. I don't want to cut anything off. Did anyone have any other comment or question?
I just want to tell you, I have a bill that, from Ireland that has her picture on it
Yes, there's that also.
before they went to use the euro.
Yes, and I don't have that. I forgot to put that in here. But yes, there's also a paper bill. It's not a lot.
£5 note.
It's a £5 note, yeah. Okay, so if there's nothing else anyone wants to say, I did have some maxims in the slideshow, but I'm going to forego that because I am aware that 8 o'clock is when we agreed to stop. So I'm going to end this with something else. Let's see here. I've got to get back. I know what to do. I hope I don't lose it all. No, I didn't. Okay. So down here is what I want. Now let me just tell you what this is before I get it. Mount St. Aloysius College is a sister institution. It's in Crescent, Pennsylvania. It's a Mercy institution. And it's one of those 17 colleges and universities that our community sponsors. So this is a choir. Oh, I also wanted to hand this out. This is just a little pamphlet, and when it was, this black is, it would have been brown. It would be, it looks like it's all black, but it's really not. It's the way this was copied. So. Anyway, it is what it is. That's one of my favorite sayings. Anyway, just take one of these and pass it on. We're just pass them back here. Okay. And the future pay is in here. So you can follow along there. And you can also follow along with what's going to happen up here. So it's, when you open it up, it's on the left. And it's her original prayer. And there's some other things you might want to look at. We are praying for her beatification. We do need a miracle. So if anybody has any miracle you want to pray for, there you go. And if you do get a miracle, let me know. Okay? Actually, I think I have one. You want to hear what this is? One of my great nieces was about 6 years now ago. She was diagnosed when she was a teenager with fast-moving lymphoma, the kind that produces a new growth every 24 hours. So her mother is a nurse by profession, and Chrissy is her name, and Alexa is the name of the great niece. So Chrissy, you know, being the nurse she is, knew what to do. And they got the AMA had come up with a regimen specifically for that type of lymphoma. So, of course, Alexa had to go through the whole regimen of the chemo and everything. To this day, she is cancer-free. She's now in veterinary school. Yeah, her dream is to help animals. She lives in Kentucky where the horses range freely. She's a horse rider, she's a sportswoman, and she really wants to be an animal vet. And so we hope, pray. She's a very intelligent woman. She has scholarships up at the zoo, the wazoo, whatever. She's really receives a lot of money. And she was the cancer poster child for the Cancer Society for a whole year. The Bengals, pro football team in Cincinnati, people who have cancer, they go to cancer camps and they all get to know each other and everything. So she did all that. And some of her little friends at now they would have been older, they had passed away. But she's really into helping the Cancer Society as much as she can. And everybody gets a wish, your wish. Her wish was to have dinner with the Bengals. Yeah. She not only had dinner, the whole team took her and her family out on the field in Cincinnati. She got to throw the ball, catch the ball, got it signed, and they all sat down for a big dinner. The whole Bengal troop and the family. and Alexa. She was delighted. She could not believe that this was happening. So she is now beyond 5 years. That normally at 5 years you can claim it as a cure. So I really ought to get busy and check this out.
You must connect it to the fact that it was through the intercession of Catherine McAuley.
Oh yes, thank you. I assumed all that. Okay. Thank you, Sister Mary George. I can always count on you. I mean that. Okay, this is the choir at Mount Aloysius College. Now let's make sure we get this right. No, we don't want that to go away. And we want to, oh yeah, all I have to do is, oh, they started without us.
Almost finished.
We can change that. Okay, where's the sound? The sound is supposed to be, there it is. We got it. Enjoy. I wonder what happened if I did this. No. Okay. Don't go there. Well, now it is truly ended. And thank you.